Your next witness.
Your Honor, Mr. Depp calls Sean Bett.
So Sean Bett absolutely wrecked that certain Aquaman starlet, talking about the friends that she had, talking about the things that she had to say about JD, and talking about certain narratives that she threw out there along the way. You and I, we're going to talk about that today. Fun times, huh? Fun times indeed. So, hey there to all you fine folks on this fine day, by the way. I hope you are doing excellently. Quickly, before we get started, check out and back our project. The link is in the description. Companies allowed this mess to happen. They don't like you as a consumer. Staple your wallet shut, walk away, walk towards something, help us send a message. Thank you. So the first thing Sean Bett talked about was being around JD, and one of the subjects that came up was JD drinking. Now this is a very important subject too, because a certain Aquaman starlet is trying to say when that happens, well, he turns into something else. Well, Sean Bett said, yeah, he turns into something else, Captain Jack Sparrow.
Over the course of your employment with Mr. Depp, have you seen him consume alcohol?
I have.
How frequently?
It ranged. Sometimes I wouldn't see him drink at all, and there'd be other times he, would have a glass of wine or two.
And based on your observations, how would you describe Mr. Depp's demeanor after drinking alcohol?
His demeanor is the same as if you were talking to him. I would joke around with some of the other security personnel. He's, my terminology would be he's kind of too cool for school. He goes into that kind of Jack Sparrow mode, and he just, he's very likable, whether he drinks or he doesn't drink.
Afterwards, Sean Bett was asked about meeting that certain Aquaman starlet, and more importantly, meeting friends and family. And well, he had some interesting things to say about them.
After Mr. Depp and Miss Heard started a romantic relationship, did you become familiar with any of Miss Heard's family or friends?
I did.
Which ones?
Her sister, Whitney Heard, her good friend, Raquel or Rocky Pennington, another friend, Io Tillett Wright, Miss Pennington's boyfriend at the time, Josh Drew.
And did you have an opportunity to observe Mr. Depp's interactions with Miss Heard's family and friends?
I did.
And how would you generally describe their interactions?
He was very open and warm to them. He, offered them, whatever they needed. They were constantly coming around the estate. Eventually he let a couple of them live in his penthouses downtown for free. He would let them, a few of them, drive his nice Dodge Challenger in and around town and take on trips.
Did you have an opportunity to observe how Miss Heard's friends and families treated Mr. Depp?
I did. They were obviously very pleasant to him because, from observing, they were taking advantage of him. So they were being obviously extra nice to the hand that feeds them. And that's just progressed over a period of time.
Now, from there, you get into the interactions between that certain Aquaman starlet and her friends. And Sean Bett, well, he had an interesting tale to tell about one said interaction.
Do you recall any specific instances, Mr. Bett, where you heard Miss Heard say something to her friends?
I do.
Okay. Can you describe one of those situations?
Yes. The first one, I was taking her from Mr. Depp's property to her apartment in the south end of the city that I believe Mr. Depp was paying for. She was sitting next to me in the vehicle. She was talking to a girlfriend or a friend where they were talking about another male. And she says to the girlfriend, whoever she was talking to, all men are idiots. You shouldn't trust that guy. And then she turned to me and she said, sorry, Sean. Not you, I didn't mean that. And I just shrugged it off like it's not a big deal.
Do you remember approximately when that conversation took place?
I would say probably maybe 2012 or 13 perhaps even a little bit sooner than that. It was a long time ago.
Then Sean Bett was asked about a certain Aquaman starlet's drinking habits, to which he said, oh yeah, there were some. And then he was asked about arguments that he saw. And this is going to end up leading somewhere in just a moment.
Do you recall observing any arguments between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Several.
Can you tell the jury about one that comes to mind?
There was an incident, for example, I just happened to be on the floor of their penthouse, which is on the top floor of this building. I was outside by the pool area reading a book, and when I was walking back past their door, I could hear shouting. I could hear her voice shouting, at a very high pitch. So I didn't rush in right away or anything. I just kind of stood by the door. He was, speaking with her, and then the voices, the shouting dissipated, and then, there was music playing, and then they started talking. So I kind of just stood by the door briefly, and then I went into another section of the penthouse floor.
Do you recall approximately the time frame of that argument?
As far as the year or how long it lasted?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Bett. The year.
That could have been perhaps 2012, 2013, maybe a little thereafter.
Now, probably one of the most alarming things that people don't understand is the last incident, May 21st, 2016, the one in which so many bad things were alleged. That happened one day after JD's mother had passed away. Sean Bett, he fills that in.
After April 21st, 2016, when did Mr. Depp next see Ms. Heard?
In my presence, he would have seen her May 21st.
And was that after Mr. Depp's mother passed away?
Correct. That would have been a day after she passed.
Then Sean Bett absolutely wrecks that certain Aquaman starlet. Why? Because he exposes the fact that none of this, it was real.
We walked down the hall towards Mr. Depp's penthouse, which would have been penthouse number 3.
And did you stand outside the door, or did you go in?
As we approached the door, we could hear the screaming and shouting from Miss Heard. So I immediately opened up the door, and Mr. Judge and I ran in there.
What do you remember Ms. Heard screaming or shouting?
It appeared she was shouting profanities. So once Mr. Judge and I went through the front door, Mr. Depp would have been standing directly in front of us, maybe about 20 feet, because parallel to us walking in or running in, there was a wall. It was the way the kitchen was set up, it was almost like an L shape. So you walk in, and then you'd have to make a left. So Mr. Depp would have been standing in front of us, and he glanced at us. As soon as Mr. Judge and I rounded the corner, I saw Ms. Heard standing next to her good friend, Raquel Pennington.
And how was Ms. Heard standing? Where were her hands?
Her hands would have been in this motion. Once Mr. Judge and I rounded that corner and she saw both Jerry and I, she had this look of surprise on her face, and then she looked at Mr. Depp and us, and she shouted out loud, "This is the last time you do this to me." At which point Mr. Depp looked at her and said, "What the hell are you talking about?" At that point, Mr. Judge tapped Mr. Depp on the arm and told him, "Boss, let's leave." So we gathered, there was a couple of computer bags that was right on a table, and we exited the front door to penthouse number 3.
Now, the interesting thing about that is that his story actually matches up with the surveillance footage. You'll notice JD, he doesn't have a magnum-sized bottle in his hand. He actually has bags with him. The other guys do too. That's what they said that they picked up. And beyond that, Raquel Pennington actually being in her room, she didn't get text like that certain Aquaman starlet said. She was already in the room. She didn't have to bypass the security guards. You know what all of this stuff says? It says 100% that it's all a setup. Let me know what you think, and check out and back our project. Again, link is in the description. This is our way of beating back companies that allowed this to happen, that sat on the truth for over a year while telling customers they don't matter. Walk away from them. Walk towards something better. Help us send a loud message, and thank you. Appreciate the heck out of you. Cannot say that enough. Ending here, too. Thank you again. See you soon.